Good morning to you all, and you're welcome once again to another session of our Digital Footprint series. My name is Princess Ewuna Indom, and I am the coordinator at the American Kana Adbova at Mobile Web Ghana. American Spaces provides access to current and reliable information about the United States through its book collections, internet access, events, and activities for everyone. Today, we'll be discussing an interesting topic on digital rights and media inclusion. And facilitating the session is Ms. Tirus Eliknim Jineku. Tirus is a lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Journalism at the Faculty of Journalism and Media Studies, where she teaches new media. She is currently the communication chair for the Internet Society Ghana chapter and an encryption tutor with the Internet Society Foundation. Tirus also runs and produces a tech podcast called The Tech Digest. Her areas of interest include fake news, fact-checking, digital rights, internet governance, social media, journalism, and new media. She has published various digital rights-related articles on the following platforms: thus the Association for Progressive Communicators, citynewsroom.com, and joyonline.com. Tirus is also a 2019 ECOWAS Fellow on Internet Governance. And so she's going to be facilitating this session. And so during the session, please type all your comments or questions in the comments box below, and they will be addressed. And also let us know where you are watching us from. And so thank you. And now I'll turn it over to Tirus. Good morning, Tirus.
Hi, good morning, Princess, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are connecting from. Thank you all for coming. My name is Theoros. I'm just going to take some few minutes to share my screen, and we'll just go right into it. So just a minute. I need to share my screen. Awesome. So I think that Princess had already given a lot of info about me, so I'll leave that. But again, I think that this topic is lively, and it had actually come at the right time, where there's a lot happening in the media currently. And so today's session is just going to expose us to what our rights are online and how we are supposed to maintain them, and uh, what some of the challenges that we are facing and how we can help solve that and all that. So please feel free to leave your questions in the chat, and I'm sure that we would attend to that. Now, when we talk about rights, right, what comes to mind? Like your basic human right, what comes to mind? Obviously, you would think, again, depending on the jurisdiction and where you are coming from, at least you have your basic rights. You have the right to free speech, you have the right to education, you have the right to good health. Um, and so all those things are surrounded, and it makes it so easier for us to actually determine how we should behave online. Now, in 2012, again, repeated in 2018, the UN Human Rights Council have actually decided to have one framework or one um, clear definition of what a human rights is, because there has been a lot of discussions around what should be in the right and what should not be, especially when it is digital, right? Because now we are mostly relying on the internet. And so everybody was having their own definition or understanding of what a right should be online. And so in 2012, the UN started a working definition of what a digital right should be. And they re-echoed that again in 2018 when they realized that a lot, even though they had started, the process has still not gained ground. So they defined the digital right as the same rights that people have offline should be applied to the online system, right? So just like how probably in your area, right, or in your physical work, in your country where you are staying, in your jurisdiction, people cannot just easily walk into your house without your consent. It's the same way when you move that right online, right? People cannot just walk into your DM or just walk into your working space online and just stalk you or harass you online. So that's what we meant by saying that the same rights that we apply on offline should be the same right that we apply online. So you need permission to come into somebody's space, which is the person's DM on probably on Instagram, on Twitter, or you need somebody's permission to even connect, just like how we do on LinkedIn. So you send a friend request to somebody, and you await the person's connection before you do that. The person has the right to say that I don't want to connect with you, I don't feel comfortable, I don't like you, and so I would not want to connect with you. That's somebody's fundamental human right. I mean, but once again in 2016, the Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights resolution here in Africa region has also established their own understanding of what a digital right is, and they have explained it as the freedom of expression on the internet. So now we are moving from expressing the same right you have offline to online, and now putting it in the state of saying that you need to have the ability to actually express yourself online. You have the freedom of speech. And when you look at the jurisdiction, we all know how the freedom of speech works. And we will be having a look at that in our subsequent presentations or in our subsequent slide. Apart from the UN and the National Commission in Africa, there are also national constitutions in our various countries that actually are supposed to guide us on what to do. So here in Ghana, we have the 1992 Constitution, which actually guides us on what to do offline. I'm sure in other countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, everywhere, there's always a national constitution. Those national constitutions are supposed to guide us in what we are supposed to do. Then there's another body called the African Declaration on Internet Rights and Freedom, AFDEC. They also have come up with some form of human rights initiative and how we are going to do. But apart from those government established organizations and constitutions, there are other institutions or bodies that are also championing the issues of digital rights. So we have Access Now, which is an organization that um, is built on fighting for the digital right of citizens. So they are mainly Access Now is mainly encompassed with digital rights activists. They are encompassed with digital rights advocates, and they run a project. They run a weekly project called not a weekly, sorry. They run a yearly project called RightCon, right, where they gather all the digital rights advocates and fighters to have discussions around the issues of the internet and how people are faring. And just this year, they had already started writing an open letter to the government of Ethiopia. You know, this year, the Internet Governance Forum will be held in Ethiopia later around December or last week in November. And what they do is that they actually assess the trend of internet issues. So countries that suffer a lot with internet shutdowns, like Zambia, like Ethiopia, like the Gambia. They send them open letters and sort of advocate with them or come to a conclusion with their governments to see what they can do to actually solve the issues of infringing on people's digital rights. So apart from Access Now, we have Paradigm Initiative that has its headquarters in Nigeria and um, uh, offices in Cameroon, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and the rest. They are also champions research into digital rights issues. So this year they actually came out with a movie called Focus. It's still on YouTube. Anybody could have a look at that. And the movie was just a summary of the 2021 year report of digital rights infringement, where some governments according to the movie, right, and their research shows that there are some governments that spy on what their citizens are doing. And so I think that anytime probably you have your mobile phone, right, and your internet is not working, the first thing you are thinking about is my service provider is trying to mess with me. But most of the time, it's not really your service provider messing up with you. So in the case of Togo in 2019, before the election, the internet became very slow. It's not the service providers. It's just a deliberate interaction in the internet. You see in 2016 in the Gambia, the government actually shut down the internet because students were going to write exam, and they just had this assumption that the students are going to pass the sample of the question has actually leaked, and they are going to share the question via the internet. So I think in 2019, we met in Gambia with the Minister of Communication. And, so mostly when you hear things like this, you really want to be sure. And she shared her view on how they actually received a call to either shut down the internet or face another consequence. And when you look at what you are being told, you would know which option works best for you. And that is not all. There have been a trend. So there's another organization called CIPESA, which is in Uganda, also fighting for issues of digital right and inclusion. We have the Internet Society, we have the Internet Foundation, and so many digital grassroots and other organizations that I mean, are still doing the work, the digital work. But the whole idea or the baseline of what they are doing is to just make sure that the rights that you enjoy in person should be the same thing you enjoy on the internet. I think that COVID had made this very clear for us that now the internet is a big deal. I'm sure they're proud to that. We just feel that it's an accomplished it's just an add-on. We don't really need it. But COVID, I mean, since 2019, most offices are still working online. They've not moved offline. So it has become a big part of us. And the internet has actually has even given people more opportunity to form bonds and to create relations and to work. Even media organizations are now using social media platforms. They do live streaming, they do Facebook Live, they do Twitter Spaces, they do live session on TikTok and all the other social media platforms. So, and remember, all those platforms, you end up leaving your bio data on it because you need to create an account to be able to be on those platforms. So it's really prudent that those organizations are actually doing a lot of work to actually fight for uh, our rights on the internet. Thing that I've already mentioned that the UN actually is doing a lot of work in that. The General Internet Governance Forum is organized by the United Nations. They have a secretariat just dedicated to that. And so they are coming out with a lot of resolutions and a lot of laws and data protection issues that people have to look after. Now, when you look on your screen, right, what can you see? You see somebody's face and you see that the person is struggling to pull him or herself out because there are a lot of hands trying to, you know, pull him down. This is a clear um, a representation of how we are on the internet. So, as an individual, there are a lot of things on the internet that is trying to pull you down, either from your service providers or from your government or from the platform owners or to your fellow individuals that are using the platform with you. There is always a lot of things that is trying to bring you down. And there's also a lot of pressure and things that prevent you from expressing yourself, right? So it becomes difficult for you to know what to say and what not to say. Now, if we all follow the Twitter ban in Nigeria, which was just recently um, revoked, you realize that people could not access Twitter in Nigeria. Those who do that, they do that via VPN, right? So you are on the internet and you are not free. You cannot say certain things because you are afraid. In Ethiopia, I mean, journalists are actually jailed for criticizing their government on the internet. There are some countries that have freedom of expression, but that is limited. There's an extent to which you could talk on the internet. But if you look at what the internet was built upon, you realize that now the freedom of expression was one of the things that the internet was actually built on for, right? So that people could express themselves and people could be more comfortable than, I mean, talking in person. And again, I'm sure that some of us are like that. Like we can say a lot of things by just typing it out, but when you are faced with the same thing, you prefer not to say. That's because the internet had actually provided us with a sort of a safe haven where we can just be there. I wake up every day and I feel more happier looking on my phone and see what is trending on Twitter, and I prefer to tweet a lot than to talk. So I could actually be home and tweet at my friend. And when I see my friend, I'm not able to talk. It just gives us that expression. So now, if you have things around that is making it difficult for you to freely express yourself, then it's something that we have to look at for, because when we are talking about inclusion, um, first we need to talk about affordability first, even before we go into the issue of inclusion. So there are some people living in the rural areas who do not even have access to the internet at the first place. So how do we include them online? Now, again, there are some category of people that are included but do not have access or do not have the right to say everything they want to. So before you talk, you need to regulate your content. Or there is somebody else asking you, you are supposed to tweet this, but you can't say this. You cannot use this word. You should rather use that. So there are a lot of things that are making it very difficult for people to actually express themselves online. And that is what we are saying, that you cannot say that the freedom I'm enjoying outside should be the same thing on the internet, because outside, at least I have the right, in the constitution here in Ghana, and I'm sure that it may be similar or quite a little different from where you are. If you don't feel comfortable with the government initiative, you can protest, and I mean, go through the process, officially right to protest, but you do have the right to protest against an issue. But on the internet, the question we need to ask is, do we have the same right to protest on the internet? With somebody sitting somewhere call and just say, no, I don't like how this guy is talking, I don't like how this guy is criticizing me, just pull the system down? And those are some of the things that we need to look at for, because if we want to be free, then all the little things, right, that makes it difficult for us to be free should also be looked at. Now, in terms of digital rights and inclusion as well, one of the key things that we have to look out for is data privacy. So there are in 2021 there was a research that was conducted by Paradigm Initiative on the number of data protection agencies that we have in Africa. And in the entire Africa, we have only 28 countries that have data protection laws, just 28. Then we have 9 that have it in the draft format. So before a law could become an established law, you first draft it, it becomes an act of parliament. They go and debate on it before it's implemented and all of that, right? So we have only 28 that are laws. We have 9 that is instilled in the drafting stage, and we have 13 um, countries that do not have any legislation at all. They don't have, there's nothing like data protection. So you don't do that. Fortunately for us in Ghana, we actually have the Data Protection Agency. And so that quite helps. But when you think about the other countries that either do not have or are still at the draft stage, what happens to your data? When you walk into any government organization, there's always a big book right in front of you. You put in your name, your phone number, your email address, and all the bio data that they would need. The question, what happens to that data afterwards? Where do they put it? Where is it kept? Okay, that being said, right? You create an account on social media, on Facebook, for example. You put in your location, your food, all the details that you are asked. The question again is, how does Facebook stores those data for you? So the data protection is very important. I have a funny experience. I think that just a weeks ago, I decided to buy kebab in my area, and after eating, I was just curious because it was wrapped in a paper, so I was just curious to look at it. And when I looked at it, that I could see a name, like names of people, where they work, the amount they are paid. Their names are there. Those are biodata that should be shredded. They are things that are not supposed to see, because they are people's personal data. They've not given access to that. They've not told you to share my pay slip or whatever paper it is to that. But I have seen it. Now I know person A and B is paid this amount of money and the person is working here. But to the person's view or thought, the person is thinking that my data is protected. And we see that trend on social media. So you are there and you just get an ad popped up on your Facebook, or maybe probably you are a Chelsea or an Arsenal fan, or you like Kenke or something, and you see an ad popping up. And the first thing you ask is, how I can't remember subscribing to this. But you forgot that when you were actually filling in your bio data, they asked you what is your favorite football team, what is your favorite food, and you put in those details. Now, you didn't, I mean, there's a lot of things to read before you click on an agree. The portion that says I agree. Because it's very tiny, you decided that I don't want to read. So, after all, whether you read or not, you still need to take that place before you move to the next stage. So, okay, let me just click. You click on it, and that data is out there. Then again, in 2015, the USM government was it's I mean as a research was conducted, and it was revealed that um, in 2015 the US government was asking Apple to actually allow them to scan the iClouds of Apple users for child um, um, trafficking material. Now, there's no much big deal with that. But when we are now looking at encryption and the privacy of people's data, it's like you asking me to give you access to my house for you to switch off my fan for me. But the question is, how do I know that they are just going to switch off the fan without going through my files? So that's one other thing about data protection and privacy. It's one thing to give a backdoor access to somebody or an organization because they want to scan something. That is right, because if they scan that, they are going to be saving a lot of lives they are going to be saving a lot of children from being trafficked. But the other question again is, are you just going to scan part of my iCloud devices or all? What happened to my personal data? What happens to my privacy? Some of the things that are not dangerous and yet they are private to me. What happens to them? What level of um, access do you have to see or not? So those are some of the things that we need to look out for. Then now, some countries are also trying to introduce facial recognition scanning in their airport. Now, the question again here is that all those data that you are collecting, how do we protect them? So how do we protect those data? I don't mind you collecting. That's fine because it helps you to actually process it. Because if I get to the airport, you would obviously ask for my name, where I'm going, the address, and all that. I don't mind, but how is that? How sure am I that when I give you my house number and where I'm staying, that data is protected? How do I know that? So um, that's one thing. We cannot really be fighting for digital rights without fighting for data protection and privacy, because we need our data to be protected. Now, in terms of Africa, what is the state of digital rights in Africa? There has been a lot of declines in Africa. Most countries actually experience partial freedom on the internet. Here in Ghana, out of our 2021 research, only 64 Ghanaians are on the internet, which is very bad. Looking that within Africa, Ghana was one of the major countries that was open to the internet when it came to Africa. In sub-Saharan Africa, Ghana was the first country to have adopted the internet. Only in 2021 for us to realize that 64%, which is low, not 80, not 90, 64 of its citizens are the only ones on the internet, using the internet. The rest are not. Now, I don't even want us to go into the 64, because you realize that some people are part of the 64. They have access to the internet, but they are fully not using it. So I teach journalism student. I teach mostly between a class of 400 to 500, or even at times 600 students. And I teach them how to use social media platforms. So the first question I always ask in my class is, are you on social media? And I have students saying, oh, yes, I am. And I was like, okay, so what's your username? What name are you using? And for example, somebody may be called Theoros, right? But the person is not using Theoros. They use pseudonyms, maybe probably like Kinky Celeste's friend, or Kasua Jay-Z or and all that. And I'll be like, so why are you using that? Surprisingly, the answer I should, well, probably the answer I'm expecting is because I like it or I like that name. But no, most of them would say that, oh, I use my real name, and there's this guy that sends me a lot of DM and pictures and things and keeps calling me, and I don't like it, so I decide to close the account and create another one in another name that people don't know. So all those people fall within people who are partly using the internet. But what we don't know is that you don't have to close your account because somebody's stalking. You can actually report it, right? There's a report button on Facebook, and even Twitter has that. You can mute somebody, so the person follows you, you follow each other, you don't see the person's tweet again and all that. You can, I mean, in terms of even trying to prevent somebody from hacking into your system on Twitter now, they also have two multiple factor authentication, right? So you can, there are a lot of ways to actually have your freedom on the internet, but people don't know. So even though we are saying 64%, really when we go into it, we would realize that there are still lesser numbers. Then they are, in terms of freedom of expression, it's always constrained. There are some countries that are very particular about what their citizens say online. So their internet is monitored. What they say is monitored. As I mentioned earlier, I mean, there are a lot of research around. Anytime you are doing press freedom and all that, we always do research into how journalists are being treated online, and you realize that even in Africa, there are some countries that um, do not have freedom of expression for their journalists online and all that. So it's a lot of things that people actually go through. And so we have to be very careful. At times, the state of the internet is not, wait, like, please, just a minute. The state of the internet is not, I'm sorry about that, but the state of the internet is not very clear. There are a lot of things that plays a major role, or there are a lot of things that play a critical role on what they have to do. At times, there are no legislations, there are no laws to actually serves us, helps to implement or to guide all those things that we are going through. So it makes it difficult for people to actually know what they have to do and what they are not supposed to do. And I mean, doing what we are doing today is one of the ways we can help curb all those issues. So when you look on your screen, this is a representation of the state of internet use in Africa in 2021, just last year, December. Right. Now, when you look at it, you realize that out of the 100%, just 21 has f- full freedom on the internet, meaning you can write anything, you can say anything, you can be anything on the internet. There's no governmental intervention, there is nobody worrying you. That's just 21, which is very, very low. I mean, we are in 2021. 20% is very low. Then we have 12 who do not have access at all. They are not connected to the internet. They don't know what Facebook is. They don't know what Facebook does. They don't know WhatsApp, Twitter Spaces. They don't know all those things. Just that's 21. Then we have 39% that have access to the internet, but it's not free. Okay, so either your data package is very expensive, or your service provider is charging you a big amount of money, or there's a restriction on what you should say and what you should not. But the internet is not free for you. It's always come with a cost. Then we have 28%, which is partially free. So in that term, it means that you could do certain things, but you cannot do certain things. So you can talk about anything. You can talk about your favorite food, your color, and all that, but you cannot criticize, or you cannot use your social media platform to advocate for something that goes against a government or an organization or where you work. So if you look at it in other forms, that is not really freedom, because you are limited on what to say, and that has actually given us a head view of how um, our freedom online is threatened, right? How, what are some of the threats that we faced online? One of the major things that we face is internet shutdowns. There are a lot of internet shutdowns. In so many countries. I think that I mentioned that at the earlier beginning, but we see countries like Ethiopia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Chad, DRC, South Sudan, the Gambia, and all that. They are, especially Ethiopia, it's always prone to internet shutdowns. I mean, there are a lot of research that has been done. All this data is on the website of Access now. You can have a look at it there. They actually have a desk which is just focused on tracking internet shutdowns in Africa. So you realize that really some of the things that prevent us from being fully free on the internet is the internet shutdown, because if the internet is not working, then there is nothing we can do. Then again, there are some other countries that actually experience disruption in internet. So the internet is not shut down, but it's very slow. So I mean, in 2019, when Togo was about to go into their election, they experienced that. Even Ghana, I mean, last year we partially experienced that. There are some countries like Russia and all that, they also experienced partial shutdowns and all that. Then we have censorship, which I think that I spoke extensively on. That I mean, censorship means that whatever content you have been put out there is scrutinized. So, what is the use of being on the internet if you cannot actually express yourself? Because really, the I think that a lot of people have actually realized the power of the internet and how they can actually leverage on that to do a lot of things, right? So you need one way or the other to be able to express yourself. Again, I know that, right, that where your rights start is where somebody's right ends. But I mean, there's always a middle ground. You should be able to express yourself nicely. You should be able to contribute. You should be able to call out something that is bad that is happening, because the internet is your social media platforms are just like your home. So you could do that. I mean, you are living in a house with somebody, and the person is not doing something right. um you could call out the person. So I think that it's the same thing we do face, just that now we are not allowed to do that anymore. Now our content are being censored. The videos and things we post are being censored. Then, and I mean, in terms of the emergence of these facial recognition software, it's also sort of very scary, even though it's a good innovation. Because mind you, now the internet is moving up there. We are having 3Ds, we are having blockchain, we are having Internet of Things, we are having artificial intelligence and all that. The innovation is always going to go on all the time. But the speed at which it is going is very alarming, especially when we don't know how our data is being protected. That is very scary for us. So it's one of the things that threatens our freedom online, because you don't know where your data would be and where you are going to go. So what we are saying now is don't mess with the internet, really, because I mean, that is our lifeline for youth. I mean, that is their lifeline. People actually are social media influencers. All they do is to be on the internet and create content and make money out of it. So you cannot really abuse us on the internet. We are allowed to use the internet platforms to share our thoughts, to share our views. Yeah, there are times there are things that are not well said, and there are things that are well done. But looking at that and the overall usage of the internet, it's just evident and more people use the internet, right? And as such, a lot of people should be allowed to freely move on the internet and use all of that. So what we are asking, right, or what is needed to do is to make sure that the issue of data protection is actually tackled, because it's really a big challenge. We need data protection agencies in every country in Africa. But we know that if you scan my face and all the data that you collected at the airport, I know is stored, is saved, and nobody can use that to abuse me. We need to, I mean, have cyber security laws, fact that we can always apply, right? So that when somebody is cyber bullying me, sorry, or cyber stalking me, I know where to report to. Right now, you cannot really, unless you have evidence, right? You cannot walk into the a police office and say, I mean, there are some countries, I mean, that have those regulations, but how many are working, right? That you walk into a police station or and say that somebody is stalking me online, and you don't have any evidence, nothing. Well, I mean, the first thing we think is, are you sure? What if the person lies to you? How do you even determine if somebody is stalking you or not? There should be a cyber law that helps to deal with that. And I mean, the laws should be made more open, right? In terms of policy paper writing and drafting the laws, it's always advisable to include everybody. You don't just select some group of people and just think that those people would do it, because everybody uses the internet, from government to civil servant to academia to media to entrepreneurs to everybody. So when you are drafting laws and regulations as such, you should be able to include their consent and their thought and their understanding into that. It makes it more richer, and it makes it more understandable, right? Because they are able to contribute, and they are able to share their thought, and they could actually give you a real life experience of the things they've done that is more relatable. At times you don't know the extent to which things affect people, because you are not in that situation. But if you are bringing on board, right, somebody who have been cyber stalked for so many times, or I mean, I think that a lot of celebrities and social media influencers suffer a lot, because we always think that because they are public figures, we could always show them on the internet and say a lot of things about them, but they do also have personal lives, and so it's always dicey. So I mean, in drafting policies and laws, people like that should be brought into the fold, right? So that they are able to help to draft a better cyber laws, to help to protect our rights. Because even in the offline system, we have constitution that guides how we should live, and we have punishments attached to things. So we should also implement the same thing in the cyber world. But again, how do we educate people on their rights, and how do we even teach them how they can protect themselves from um, those right being harassed? The first thing is advocacy. You need to we need to have advocates, we need to have activists, we need to have people who champions those cause. Then we need to be having a lot of training sessions like what we are doing now, more webinars, more education seminars, and fellowships as well. Because I mean, it takes time to start feeding you, and it takes time to start telling you what is right and what is not wrong. It takes time. I mean, but attending programs and trainings is one step. At least you get the exposure to even know what you are entitled to, and how to also deal with those things. So you need to, I mean, be involved in a lot of training and a lot of fellowship programs, a lot of education, attending conferences and webinars and all that. I mean, you could also, I mean, we could also take part in drafting policy papers. You can, I mean, sit at the comfort of your home, draft a paper and submit it, or reach out to somebody and say, I have this idea. This is the experience that I have, and I've drafted a policy out of this. Can you help me have a look at it? Is there some of the things that we need to put in there, and some of the things that we need to take out of there? Right. So I'm just going to leave you with based on your thoughts. Do you think that in terms of crisis, right, or misunderstanding or conflict and all that, do you think the internet is still open? Remember, we are in Generation Z, right, or we are in the 21st century. Do you think that upon all the activities or all the advocacy that have been done for digital rights and inclusion and open government, do we still think that in terms of crisis, the internet is open? Then do we think that people have much access to the internet? How do you even measure those level of access? Do they? I think that these are just a food for thought that I would want you to have a look at. Thank you so much. So I'll just open the floor now for questions, Princess. Um, Back to you. These are my social media account. Feel free to reach out anytime you would want to. Thank you, Princess. I so
Thank you, Tyrus. You want to say something? Please go ahead.
No, I'll just say I'll stop sharing my screen, and if there are any questions or contributions, I'm free
I
to
think
come.
you could just leave it there so in case people want to reach out to you.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Mm, Okay. And so thank you for this enlightening discussion and exposing us to what digital rights and media inclusion means. And so for our viewers, it's time for your questions. If you have questions on this topic, kindly type that in the comments section below. And so as you wait for the questions, Tiroz, I want to know when it comes to digital rights and the whole sphere of media inclusion here in Ghana, would you say that the Ghanaian society is doing better when it comes to policies and governance?
Right. So, okay. So I'll take it in two parts. In terms of doing well, yeah, I think that Ghana is one of the countries that have free up online engagement. Right. I'm not sure that content are censored. I mean, I've done quite some research in that, um, and I've not really found any gap in terms of what content are censored. In fact, I mean, there are a lot of activities that started here in Ghana from the internet, like Fix Your Country initiative, started from the internet. Anytime Ghanaians are angry, they always go on the internet and not, I mean, I'm still searching, but I've not seen any government saying that we are closing the internet. Ghana is one of the freest, if I must say, um, country that allow its citizens to actually use the internet to their advantage. Everybody's on the internet. If the government is trying to pass a law or a policy, they are not happy, they take it on the internet. Even now, the mainstream media, right, or broadcast media, those are the radios and the TVs are even realizing how strong the internet is here, and they are even moving discussions online. So you see them having live sessions, how do I put it? They do live sessions on their internet and allow people to comment and contribute. And you see people posting all sort of things, which hitherto in other countries it may not really be allowed. It may be punishable. So I think that the Ghanaian media and the general use of the internet is free. And again, I think that in terms of policy writing, there is more work to do. I know that there are organizations that are helping in terms of media freedom. Media Foundation for West Africa is doing a good job there to advocate for media freedom online and all that. But I think in general, the internet usage here is free. Censorship is not an issue here. The government does not censor what Ghanaians put out there, not at all. They don't, because really, if they do, a lot of people wouldn't say. But let's when we follow the trend on the internet, there's no censorship on the internet at all. Everybody is able to express him or herself and use it as compared to other places.
Thank you for the answer, Tyrus. And so you kept emphasizing on the fact that here it's when it comes to digital rights in Ghana is much friendlier. And so I want to ask this question: what can an institution do in case of a violation of its rights or their rights?
Well, so if an institution, I don't, if it's in Ghana, you can always report. There are agencies attached to that. And again, what sort of violation are you talking about? If it's a data protection violation, then you have the data protection agency here in Ghana. You can report to. If it's media, which is like journalists being harassed online, we have the GJA that you can report to. That's the Ghana Journalists Association. Sorry, that you can report to. We have the National Media Commission. We have there. So and I'm sure there are other bodies that I can't remember now. I still would mention them if I remember. So it depends on what issues that you are tackling and what you are reporting. But as an institution, even what you can do, especially when your workers are um, heavy internet users, is that you can establish rules and regulations. Every workplace have that. At my workplace, we have that. I mean, we are lecturers, but there's ethics. So let me call it ethics. There are working ethics, and there's always a punishment for breaking those things. So you can also establish that in your workplace. But if it's bigger than you, like for example, as I said, if somebody is harassing you online, you can, I mean, you can report that to the police if you have evidence. The and I know that the Ministry of Communication does partners with institutions to create cybersecurity awareness in October here in Ghana, every October. But I know this month they are having a cybersecurity conference in Ghana. They started last week. But in October, every October of every year, there's always a cybersecurity awareness, education, and training, which is championed by the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization in partnership with other organizations. So institutions can leverage onto that and find out, okay, look around. If you see that this is the challenge we are facing and there are no laws to regulate that, draft one, submit to the ministry, and let it pass into bill for you. Or you can also partner and work with organizations or institutions that are already advocating for that. For example, the Internet Society. We have a chapter in Ghana. They are into that. You could partner with them. You could partner with Media Foundation for West Africa. You could partner with the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization. Now, I mean, and other ministries that are into similar things. The UNESCO does a little part of that, and I'm sure that there are other. Even what you guys are doing here is a clear thing. It's not. It's a thing that you can put together. So what I want to say again is that writing a policy may require a lot, but it always starts with the first step. If you identify an issue that is happening, and you try to find a solution for it, and you realize that there is little solution, then you can draft a policy paper to that effect, and you can actually follow it up to make sure that it is passed into a bill that would have an effect for anyone that would break the rules of that.
Thank you for the answer. And so there's another question, and it's saying that the use of individual health data creates exceptional opportunities for generating insights on our overall well-being, but it also poses threats to us. What's your thoughts on it? Do I take it
Yes,
again?
no, I get it.
Okay.
So yes, if you provide your personal health data, for example, you walk into a hospital and you provide your personal health data, that is good because if 10 people walk to the hospital for the same thing, it helps us to make a decision. Okay, 10 people came today and they all have COVID. So maybe now let's track it back to a whole month. From January till December, we keep recording this amount of COVID, and they all come with these symptoms. It helps you to make a further. I mean, it helps you to provide solution and to know. But what we are saying here in terms of data protection is that we don't mind you collecting the data, but we want to know what the data is used for and how safe is the data. Is the safety that we are talking about? Because imagine that you work in an institution, right? Or you work in the Food and Drugs Authority, or just an institution, right? And you go to hospital and you have HIV, right? There's a nicer way to tell you, oh, patient, hey, you have an HIV, you cannot work here. But if I have to buy food for them to wrap your medical report, my food in your medical report, for me to eat it, I now know that you have this condition. At times, it sort of affects people's life and have a lot of bad impact on them. So the issue here is not how the data is collected because we need the data to make decision, obviously, and it's going to help a lot. But what we are looking at is that how is the data protected? Is it safe? Is it secure? I've gone to institutions where you see people lying around, you see people's file just around. Even in hospitals, like the files are just put in cupboards, some are torn, some are falling, they are just packed anywhere. So you can walk in and actually pick somebody's file and read and know the person's medical history and all that. or you go to an institution like an educational institution, somebody's admission letter is piled up somewhere because there's no space to keep it. Those information are private to the person, and it's no matter how much you need those data to make your decision, just make sure that you keep them well. If you don't have an office for it, or you are done using it, instead of selling it out to make money, you shred it or you burn it, one way or the other, but do not leave the data open for somebody else to have access to. It's sort of not fair for the people, unless the person gives you consent that, oh, you have my consent to share the information or not. But if the person does not, then you should not. And even now, most organizations are now, even, when you look into the online act, there's this whole idea that when you are in an event and you take a picture, right, you need to seek the consent of the people in the picture to be able to share it out, because mine is somebody, their job requires them not to be in public spaces or certain areas. So if you take a picture of them in an event and you just share it out there and they lose their job because of that, then you are the cause of it. But you could have taken that picture and still keep it in your archives. That is protecting that data. But if you think that you need that picture to go out there to help make a decision, then you need to seek the consent of the people in the picture. So it's the same thing. If you have your bio data somewhere, right? You just need, it's good because it helps to make decision, it helps to track trends and all that, but we are still saying that you need the consent of the people before you expose their data, or to make your decision without exposing their data. I don't, Princess, that I have answered it very well for
Yeah,
you.
you have. Yeah, thank you for that. So I'll come up with a follow-up question on that. But there's another question I want you to answer. It's asking that what constitutes digital works?
Digital works. Can I get a little clarification on that? What does he or she mean by works?
And that was the question, what constitutes digital work? So I don't know whether it has to do with maybe the stages when it comes to digital rights. And so please, can you rephrase the question?
Yeah,
And so I'll
I'll
be
be
waiting on
grateful.
that. Yeah, and so Theo was following up
Yeah.
on your earlier submission when it comes to being cautious and also being ethical when you are taking pictures. And for you as a lecturer in your background in journalism, looking at some journalists who would just go take pictures of people because they want to add up to their story. In instances like that, is it not one, a violation of the rights of the people, and two, media institutions, do they have a mechanism or a strategy where it's their employees are supposed to be guided by, or I mean, they want to just sell out the news, so they don't care what pictures are put out there.
Right, so I'll take the first one. So as um, as a media institution, right, if you go through a professional media training institution, one of the things we teach in journalism is privacy. So the ethics of journalism teaches you that when you are taking a picture of a minor, especially in a trending issues, you don't show the person's face. So, or in sensitive issues of rape, gender-based violence, or accident or anything, as long as the person is a minor, you do not show the person's face, no matter what. Even if the child agrees, do not show the face. It's in our ethics. It's even in the GDA code. You do not show the face of the child. If the person is an adult, you seek the person's consent before you show the person's face. Okay, that's what, and we do teach that. But one other trend that I have noticed is that at times what you teach in the classroom, it's always not what people do when they go onto the field out there. Because even I teach new media, right? So I teach my students how to use social media and all that. I always tell them that if somebody send you a friend request, read the person's bio first. If you are not comfortable, you don't like the person, you don't like what the person shares, do not accept the friend request, because you have the right not to. It's your account. You decide who you let in or not. So now what the media is supposed to do is that you need to protect. Your job is to protect minors. That's number one. But you, princess, you also bear with me and everybody that this internet had come with what we call citizen journalism, where people now do a work of a journalist without having the proper training. So you see an accident happening somewhere, and by the time you realize 10 minutes later, the photos are on the internet with body parts sharing all around. But the people there may not be trained journalists. They do not have the training, the education, because if they do, they know what they are supposed to do. You don't show it at times. If even if you want to show it, you blur it out. You try to make it more presentable so that it's not very gory, or you give viewers discretion before you share. Those are the things you pick up in journalism training and education. But citizen journalists do not have that training. All they have is the internet, their mobile phone, and data. So they just take a picture and they put it out there. And unfortunately, they trend more than the professional journalists because information spreads faster. So they put it on Facebook, and within 10 minutes, they have thousand like. In fact, some citizen journalists even share stories even before the mainstream media gets hold of it. At times, I mean, radio and TV stations actually leverage on those information and now reach out to the community. But you would always see the difference. So what we are saying is that they should they should have the training. Even if you wouldn't get an opportunity to go to the school, always do short courses, learn, read. If you do those things, you would know how to handle it. But real journalism teaches you not to share certain things, even in information, especially again in sensitive issues. When you interview somebody, we don't mention the person's name. You use a pseudonym, so a name that is very popular, like Abena or Akosia. They are Sunday born. We have thousands of Sunday borns in the world. So you blur the person's face, or you cover the person's face, and you put the person's name there as Akosia. You people would easily know. So you are protecting the person, because there are certain things that are very discriminatory and really affect people even with their job or personal living. So we there's always a way around it, and this education and training comes from institutions that are established to do that. They provide that training. I have that training because I've gone through the educational system in that, and I'm teaching that now, and I impact that in my students. So I think that you would always see the difference between the professional ones and the unprofessional people. The princess, can you take me through the second part of the question that you asked, or if this has tackled on both?
So I think you have highlighted that. So I also wanted to know if there are other strategies or guidelines that media institutions have for their employees on what they put out there.
So I think that some media houses, or not some, but I think that media houses should have, but again, that would depend on the availability of resources and things. But I could say boldly that I know CTFM has fact checking decks. Let me say CT as a media house has a fact checking deck. Sorry. Joy has a fact checking deck. I know other media institution may have, which I'm not aware of. But I mentioned this too because I know. But again, I stand to be corrected. I know others may have. But again, so what the fact checking that, and we have Dubawa Foundation, which is into fact checking. We have GhanaFacts.com, which is also into fact checking. So um, media houses should actually have fact checking desk, right? So that when they come out with information, they should verify it. Verification is key. And again, I think that the data protection agency should actually educate media houses on that, because we are not just talking about the physical data that you collect. The journalists go on the field to interview people, to ask questions. One of the things you need to do as a media person is that after you interview the person, ask the interviewee, especially if it's not a live interview, you should ask the interview, do you want me to say everything that you said? Do you want me to play all the audios? Do you want me to mention your name? Do you want me to show this? Or is there something you want me to take out? It should be a discussion that you have with your interviewee, especially if it's not a live session, so that you don't end up exposing the person or re-quoting the person or saying something that you are not supposed to say actually, right? So but again, if it's a live session, then there's always a prior engagement before that, right? So even during your initial stage of reaching out, you should always ask the person, can you say, should I say this, or are you comfortable with this? Are you comfortable with that? Because as again, let me mention that especially when you're doing an investigative piece and you have a whistleblower, I think that some countries have the Whistleblowers Act that is protecting them, so that is okay. But in countries where there are no Whistleblowers Act that is protecting them, you are putting somebody's life on the line here. The person is reporting or sharing light or throwing light on things that are happening in their area or workplace. That is very bad. So issues like that, you don't expose the person's face, you are easily going to get the person killed. So all these things, journalists would have to put that in place. Again, for instance, this will come back to my first point, that if all journalists have the education and the needed training, then the writing would be done because the training captures all that. But there are some people who are into the media landscape and are working out there who do not have the background. They are just fluent, they are good on the camera and all that. I mean, people like that, the media organization could still come together to organize training sessions and bring experts or partner with journalism education institution and so organize training for them. But training, if we really want to help with curbing issues like that.
Okay. Thank you for the answer, Tiro. So we will soon be ending. And so I have two questions that you would answer just briefly. And
Okay.
so the person came back with rephrasing the question as in what constitutes digital content and what are some ways to protect them?
Okay,
Do I take
so
the
what
second question?
Okay, no, can I answer this so that I don't forget that? But
Okay,
I'll do
okay,
just this in 1 minute since we are almost
okay.
out. But what constitutes digital content? Digital content includes the video you put out there, the audio you put out there, the picture you put out there. So if you wake up in the morning and you are going to take your bath, you take a selfie of yourself, you put it online. You are in a public transport or your private car or an Uber or a Bolt, you take a picture of yourself, you put it out there. So do throughout your whole day, like when you go onto your social media platforms, you will see that, or you do a video and all that. Those are digital content, right? And they are on the internet. It is open to all. So now the second part of the question is, how do we protect it? There's this one word that I strongly believe in, and anywhere I'm talking about digital issues, I always say that. It may sound as a cliche, but it is not. The internet does not forget. It does not. So if you don't want it out there, don't put it. So the first answer I would give is that if you want to protect your content, do not put the sensitive one out there. Now, I heard recently, I'm still figuring my head around that. I heard recently that in some country they've passed a law called the right to be forgotten, where when you post things online and maybe later in life you are trying to run for a presidential candidate, or you need a job and you think that all the lies and things you've posted out there would come against you, you can plead for the right to be forgotten, where all the bad things you post on the internet will not be used against you. But the point is, even though the law is there, in some countries, right? And it will still protect you. It still does not protect the effect it will have on other people. If you have a sex tape out there, or you have your a bad video of you smoking and all other things out there, and they still play the law, people will still watch it. It may not affect you, but it may affect your spouse, it may affect your child, it may affect a lot of people. So the best way to protect it is do not put it out there if it's very critical. You don't always have to let people follow you with what you do, and I mean you don't have to if it's not important. Then secondly, what you can do to protect your content is to actually copyright them. But what copyright does is that it does not prevent somebody from sharing. It actually just prevents it actually gives you royalties. So even if you copyright your content, anybody can still use it against you. It's the copyright law itself does not, I know the copyright law in Ghana itself does not prevent people from, no, it only tells them that when they use it, they need to reference you. So I would say that you shouldn't share, really, especially if you live in a country that does not have any regulation to protect you. Do not, because if you do, there's nowhere for you to run up to. So just try as much as possible, no matter how much you are tempted, to regulate the things you put out there. The keyword is on the what is in the video you're posting. Would it come out to bite you? Does it contain sensitive information that people could track and use against you? Just be very careful on how to do that. Yeah, Princess.
Thank
I
you.
think
Thank you.
you ended the person well. Yeah.
Yeah, so one the last question, it says that when someone is arrested for any offense, can we, into bracket, the media person or the police or any other person take a picture of that person and publish it on the internet? I think you said something similar to this early on. So if you could just
Yeah.
wrap on.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I think that again, you would have to. So what it is especially in armed robbery cases, is that you will need to speak with the police. That's why in journalism there's something that we call a sourcing. You can I would say that it's dicey because you need to the police has to give you an authority to take a picture of that before you do that. But we still see people just taking a picture and posting it out there. You need at least you would say that because it's a crime thing, you need to put it out there. But you still need a level of clearance. So if it's a police arrest, you can take a picture, but you would want to follow up, hear the rest of the story. Not just recently, I was teaching my student about misinformation and all that. And one of the things that you do is that you take a picture, you put it out there, but you don't know the entire story, so you write as it is. So I think that issues like this, you are free to take the picture, but you still need to consult with the police because you may end up disrupting the police case itself and all that. So you can do that, but I think that if it's a police issue, you still have to seek a proper consent and authority. And some media houses already have that relation. So if your media house does not, because people have court reporters and all that, and they have reporters assigned to those institutions, so they know how the work is already done. But if you are not, then your institution have to reach out to them and ask them appropriately for that.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rose, for this enlightening education. I've personally learned a lot, and I trust that our viewers have learned something as well. And so, just your final words in three powerful words, just encourage us on how safe we should be on the internet.
Well, three powerful words. That's a lot to think.
Yes,
But I'll
I
try
put you
and
on the spot.
I know I'll try and look for three powerful words. The first one is educate. Educate yourself. Knowledge is power. So educate. Safety. Be safe on the internet. Thirdly, be free. The internet is yours. Use it freely. So educate yourself on how to use the internet. Make sure you are safe on the internet, but above all, make sure you are free on the internet. Don't let anyone hold you down. Don't let anyone determine what you do. Be free. I think that I give you the three. I hope
Yeah,
that
and thank you so much. That was a good way of ending the discussion. So I want to show our gratitude for you in facilitating this discussion today. And so to you, our viewers, thank you so much. But before I end today's program, I want to introduce you to an online resource called the Education Library USA. And this is a state-of-the-art a digital premier library with electronic databases that includes digital newspapers, magazines, journals, videos, and dissertations. And so usually this resource is only available to use in person at our American spaces. But with the global pandemic, we are opening up access to anyone interested. So please check in the comment section where the link will be shared by my colleagues. And so you could have access to this amazing resource. And so this program was brought to you by the U.S. Embassy Ghana, American Kana Agoba in partnership with Mobile Web Ghana. And this concludes our program for today. Please follow us on our social media pages as US Embassy Ghana on Facebook and on Twitter to be abreast of our subsequent programs. Until we come your way same time next week, please stay safe, still continue to ensure all protocols and get vaccinated if you are yet to do so. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
thank you.